Hello, good evening. Welcome to a packed house in our council chambers tonight. This is a regular business meeting of the Augusta City Council, and today is Thursday, April 2nd, 2026. We begin our meetings with a Pledge of Allegiance followed by a moment of silence. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, as we get settled in tonight, we're going to lead off tonight's meeting with a very special presentation in honor. Many of us are gathered here in the room tonight to honor the retirement of Battalion Chief Brian Chamberlain. And where is Brian? Oh, there he is. He doesn't look familiar without his ball cap on. You know, I know him from another world, so.
There you go.
There he is.
All right. Chief Groder, I think you're doing the honors.
Mayor, Council, Manager, Chief Groder of the Fire Department. I said a few weeks back when Lieutenant Carroll retired that we're going to be losing some historical knowledge a little bit more at a time. Well, this is a giant piece of that historical knowledge that'll be walking out the door in 15 days, something like that, 15, 16 days. We'll give him a good departing welcome, send off that morning. Just a few words about Brian. Obviously, 25 years of commitment to our organization in this city. And this is not the last you'll see of Brian. He'll be here for other reasons. You all know that he's with Kara and everything else he does for the city. But for us, he's brought our organization to the forefront on many different fields, mostly in EMS. I'll have Chief Leach give you all the information about all the stuff that he was involved with. But this one actually is hitting hard a little bit. As I get closer to retirement, I can't imagine what Brian's going through right now. I don't really want to, but so it's going to be a huge loss to our organization. It's going to be a huge loss to the city on the fire and EMS side. So he's going to be greatly missed. Steve, if you want to come up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. It's hard to list everything that Brian's done for EMS in the state, not just our organization, but he's been a huge part of it for a long time. And I think back to when Brian first started with us. It's brand new, in paramedic school still, and riding with us, and then hired and working for us, and going through the struggles of being a paramedic student and working and all of that. And it was a challenge at times, but it's a challenge that we're all faced with opportunities to learn. Some of us take them, some don't. Brian took those opportunities to learn, and he moved forward. He grew from all of those opportunities, from a point of being the paramedic student to being the paramedic instructor, to being the chair of the education committee for the state EMS system. He took all those challenges and took them on and helped develop the system that we work under now. And then at work with our organization, it seemed like Brian and I had very similar paths. We were both involved in fire stuff before we came to Augusta Fire, but EMS just became a passion. And it was I'd been there for 10 years or so when Brian started, and he was kind of like my shadow. But I look at a shadow in a little bit different sense, because some days your shadow is behind you and got your back. Some days it's walking beside you. Some days it's out ahead of you, and you can't catch up to it. And that was Brian. You know, he grew, he exceeded the expectations that we had for him when he came to the organization. You know, not everyone's going to be a battalion chief when they retire. More people are going to retire as privates than officers. But Brian worked his way through. He developed himself and developed the organization at the same time. And he always seemed to put the city and the organization ahead of him when it came to those type of situations. He would always come in on days off when something happened, something's broken, needs to be fixed. Brian's right here in town. He always came in and took care of it. We'll miss that. We'll probably swing by and grab you once in a while. But I thank Brian for all that he's done for me and helping me grow in my positions and supporting me when I needed it. And just being there as a friend. So, we'll miss you.
All right, Brian, come on up. It's your turn. So this is all warm and fuzzy time for us with our good thoughts about Brian, but if you really want a good time, you ought to come to the day that we send him off, because that's when all the stories are told. Some of those we can't talk about here, but. 1 second, Brian. On behalf of I'll let you have it. On behalf of the city, I can't get it out, I'm getting weaker. On behalf of the city, this is a gift for you and your departure. And then the microphone's all yours. This is not good, he's prepared.
When am I not, Chief? Good evening, Mayor, City Council, City Manager, Chiefs, all the Chiefs, and others gathered this evening. Thank you for this recognition. 25 and a half years ago, I made a commitment to the City of Augusta, and you made a commitment to me. I'd like to thank you for your support over these years. Some of them have been rough years. Yes, I was a union president for 8 years, so I did a lot of negotiating over the years. But I will say that the good has definitely outweighed the bad times here as an employee. As I think back on my time here, I realize how Augusta has become my home, and I'm proud of that, and I'm proud of the fact that I've had a hand in shaping some of what's happened over the last 25 and a half years. Many of you here tonight know that I'm very passionate about youth sports, and I devote hours to Kara, Babe Ruth, and the Coney Boosters. The fire department has afforded me many opportunities to make those connections work for the greater good of these kids, and I thank you for allowing me that time while as an employee as well. For 25 years, the guys and the gals that are here tonight, a lot of them, thank you, by the way, in and out of uniform were and are my family. As a battalion chief for the last 5 years, it's been my pleasure to work and lead some of the best in this business. I encourage you to continue to do the good work and know that I will be that Ward 2 taxpayer now, looking on, recognizing the good that you all do, even when others don't always see it, and know that you are doing what you can with what you have. To this day, there are times that it still amazes me that we've accomplished things as this department and the size of our department and the equipment that we have. And as city councilors, and knowing that you're coming into budget, and I've been watching the budget sessions, I know it's going to be a trying year. Just remember that this fire department does a lot with a little already. And they're some of the best out there. I'm proud to say that I'm part of this team, or was part of this team. To my family, I owe you the biggest thank you of all for allowing me the time to reach my career goals. Tara and Liam, you deserve most of the credit for my successful career. You saw me run out the door for coverage to a fire, or saw me gone for days to an academy, bettering my abilities as a firefighter, paramedic, and an officer. You truly are the ones that sacrificed on the holidays, the weekends, the adventures that you wanted me to attend, but I was unable to because it was my duty day, or I was just too tired from a long shift to go to those. So thank you to Liam. Thank you to Tara for allowing me to fulfill my goals and complete what I started out to do 25 years ago in the city of Augusta. I won't be far. I keep getting asked. I just was asked a few moments ago by the police chief, what's my plans? Right now, I'm just going to sit back. I'm going to evaluate some things and continue with my passion of supporting youth sports. Baseball season kicks off. Well, it did kick off on Monday, and the boys that are sitting behind you are pretty excited to hear tonight at practice. They found out that more than likely on Tuesday their field would be ready for them to play on. And I'm looking forward to being there Tuesday when they step on that field again. So I leave you tonight. I'm proud to be a retired Augusta Fire Battalion Chief, and I thank you for allowing me to serve the citizens and the visitors of this city for the last 25 years. And for one last time, 6-3, we'll see you at the fields.
Don't leave just yet. I'm wondering if any counselors have any thoughts or remarks? Counselor Judkins?
Mr. Chamberlain, don't be shy. Step up here to the microphone. Brian, I've got to know you pretty well and spent a lot of time at Cara, and I'm just aware of so many things you do for this community in and out of uniform. And your efforts are tireless. Your willing to help is boundless. Going back to what Deputy Chief Leach said in regards to the shadow, man, you cast a big shadow, and you are going to be some huge boots to fill. We're going to miss you, and from all of the residents, Ward 2, our undying, heartfelt gratitude for all you've done in the fire department and what you do outside of that for this community. It's just outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's going to be hard to follow. Chief, still chief, right? So I've got a few written remarks. I just want to read these to you, Brian. I'm not praying for you. I'm going to read. So sometimes retirement means not wearing the uniform. It means the end of wearing that uniform, but it doesn't mean the end of your ability to, or your desire to lead and serve. Firefighting might have been your profession, but what I've witnessed is your gift is leadership. And I've seen it. I've heard it. So thank you for your service. I believe a lot of it was service before self. Thank you for saving lives and property here in Augusta. And I just want to say in wrapping up that your service and accomplishments reflect really great credit upon you, your family, and the city of Augusta. And just seeing the fire department standing tall right here, it's pretty impressive. It really is. And you know, you've been great over the years for all of us. And every time I see you in town, you talk about the city. But thank you for your service. And like I said, it's service before self, clearly, no doubt about it. And you're just, some people have leadership. It's in them, it's there, it's the it factor, and you're a leader. And I'm going to see it, I'm sure, time and time again. It's not the end of you serving. I know that. Trust me, I know how it feels. Take a little break, but I know you're going to be back at it. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Counselor Michoud?
Thank you for your service. I'm witnessing a room full of people right now that hold our lives in our hands sometimes, and I commend every one of you in this room. 25 and a half years with Augusta. In this profession, you see a lot of things and do a lot of things. I just am curious, maybe or maybe not, is there a particular instance that changed your life? I'm just, you know, and that's probably a pretty deep question, but I'm just looking around this room and knowing that on day in and day out, each one of these people are protecting our lives and our homes. And you know, I just have to believe sometimes you wake up someday and have something happens, has a profound effect on you. Maybe I'm all wrong, but I'm just curious if there was one day you woke up that changed your life.
There's been a lot. some more than others, some I won't get into. But I will say, one of the biggest fires, and Chief Leach, I'm going to give you a little pat on the back here. We were talking about this the other day. Chief Leach was the battalion chief. I was his newly appointed lieutenant at the time. And it's funny, he talks about shadow. We've done this a number of times where he moves up, I move up. So we had the Northern Ave fire, which some of you may remember, and that was, I'm not going to say it's the biggest fire in my career, but it's the one where I had to stop, I had to think. He had a lot he was thinking about, I had a lot I was thinking about. And I remember about 5 minutes into it, probably, we crossed pathways in the middle of Northern Avenue, and I said, somebody's going to die tonight. And we didn't know what that was going to, whether it was going to be a one of us or a citizen, but that was a big fire for those of you that remember it. And we were very short-handed back then as well. We ended up making it through that whole night, and everyone that was in that building survived, and all of our guys went home the next morning. And I think that will go down in history for both of us as one of our probably proudest moments, where we, for a lack of better terms, knocked it, and we all went home. So that one has had a big impact on my thought process as a battalion chief when I look at a building before I put somebody in.
Well, thank you again, and I'm going to leave you with one thing. We've had a group of athletes in Augusta that have been knocking on the door all year long, so make sure that ball field is ready to be played, because we're ready for them to take home something big.
I'm ready for it too.
Councilor Gary Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of my favorite quotes about leadership is that leadership is taking the responsibility for enabling others to achieve shared purpose in the face of uncertainty. And I've seen you do that many times, but I saw you do it tonight as well. There's many things that you could talk about in a retirement speech, 25 years of stories, and you chose to advocate for your team. You chose to ask the council to share responsibility for the fire department and advocate for their budget and for their ability to continue to do the good work that they do. And I think I wanted to highlight that because that is the quiet leadership that I so admire about you and so admire about so many of our employees in the city of Augusta. Thank you for your service to us, and have a great retirement.
Thank you.
Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. This is an incredible room to be in tonight. The energy in here is, you have clearly made a name for yourself and relationships for yourself in this department, in this city. And it's an honor to be here during this. It also stuck out to me what that leadership that Councilor Gary Allen was noting. I was remembering my family chose Augusta. We chose Augusta in 2020 when we decided to move back to Maine. My husband and I grew up in rural areas of Maine, and we had really hardworking volunteer firefighters, but we did not have professional firefighting forces in our towns. And one of the reasons my family is in Augusta is because of the fire department, because of the police department, because of the school department. So it is a good reminder that if we want those things, we've got to stick up for our values, right? So thank you. Enjoy your retirement. I look forward to seeing you around the city.
Thank you.
Councilor Morris-Pauling.
Hey, Brian. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you very much for all of your service. Hope to see you and your family around Augusta and maybe in another leadership position someday in the future.
We'll see.
I'm not running for city council. The seat up here.
So Brian, I want to add congratulations on your retirement, and thank you for your service to the city of Augusta. I've come to know you apart from your service with the fire department over at Cara, and I got to say that there's no harder worker that I know, no one who's better connected than you. And I know how much your family means to you as well. So I'm always grateful to know when one of our first responders retires that they're doing it on their own terms and they got all their fingers and all their toes and have survived, the challenges of being a first responder. So I'm sure your family's going to be glad to have more of that time with you too, and knowing that you're going to be coming home safe from the ball fields. So thank you again for your service and congratulations, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you around.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right. With that, happy to take a break. If there's any kind of photo opportunity that you want to take, gather with your colleagues here in the well, or however you want to do it. I'm happy to take a little break to accommodate you in any way you'd like.
Wouldn't mind getting one with the crew that's here tonight if we can. So, thank you.
Yep.
Get out of the way for that.
On tonight's agenda is a public hearing. The purpose of the public hearing is to take testimony, hear comments about the Riverlands Affordable Housing Development and Tax Increment Financing District and Development Program. this is how we'll proceed with our public hearing. I've let everybody know what the purpose of the hearing is. We will hear first from staff to give any kind of comments or report that they would like to offer on the application. And we'll ask the proponents to comment on their proposal if they would like. Then we'd open up for persons wishing to speak in favor of the district and the development program, then those who wish to speak in opposition, finally those who wish to speak neither for nor against. And after all those persons have been given an opportunity to testify, we'll give the applicant one final say, and we'll conclude the public hearing, then move next to the balance of our agenda, which will include later on consideration of an order to establish the district and adopt the program. So with that, the public hearing is open. I invite staff first.
Good evening. I'm Keith Luke. I'm the city's Economic Development Director. What is before you tonight is a proposed affordable housing TIF for the Riverlands project on Oxford Street. Riverlands is a 25-unit supportive housing project intended to serve individuals experiencing chronic homelessness. The basic terms of the TIF are straightforward. Under the proposed structure, 75% of the new property tax revenue generated by the project would be returned to the project through a credit enhancement agreement, and 25% would be retained by the city. Based on current projections, that works out to about $15,700 per year going to support the project, and about $5,200 a year being retained by the city. Over the 30-year term, total reimbursements to the project are projected to be $471,000, with about $157,000 retained by the city. We have used affordable housing TIFs many times before, and we have used them successfully to help projects compete for main housing support. While Riverlands is not being evaluated under the same exact scoring matrix used in the Affordable Housing Tax Credit Program, it is part of a competitive main housing process, and the competitiveness of this project depends in part on the level of municipal participation. Main housing very intentionally incentivizes local support, because without that support, these projects are simply not possible. In this case, the project has a budget of about $10 million. The city TIF participation amounts to less than 5% of that total. Put another way, we're talking about roughly $471,000 spread over 30 years, helping to leverage an almost immediate $9.5 million construction investment in the city of Augusta. And that is only one part of the funding picture. The project also includes ongoing Department of DHHS operating support of approximately $900,000 annually for the life of the project over 30 years. So this proposal is not only leveraging substantial upfront construction investment, but also a very significant long-term operating commitment from the state. So apart from the public value of supportive housing, this is also a legitimate and highly leveraged financing tool. This is exactly the kind of leverage tool that the statute is there for. It is a limited municipal contribution that helps make a significant project possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Loop? Councilor Allen?
Hi, thanks for being here tonight. I just have a couple of questions. My first one is, could you tell me how many market rate TIFs the council has approved in the last 2 years?
Off the top of my head, we've got the Calumet TIF, the A and B TIF, which is not going forward, the Kmart Plaza, Capitol Heights Plaza TIF is a market rate TIF. Those the only ones that spring immediately to mind. Calumet and Capitol Heights Plaza.
Okay. Do any affordable housing TIFs come to mind for you?
Several. We've got Sturgeon Landing. We've got Malta Street, we've got 33 Union Street, Maple Street, Workforce Housing, Sturgeon Landing, 99 Western Avenue.
Did all of those receive TIFs?
They did.
When's the last time the city of Augusta denied a TIF?
I've been here for 14 years, and that has not happened yet.
Thank you, Keith.
Any other questions? It's time. Councilor Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Keith, when this was presented to use a TIF as an option for financing, my assumption was like the other TIFs where it's competitive by points, and then this one's a little different. I've come to learn as of late. Was opioid funds ever explored as an alternative? Because the people financing it isn't so much the TIF, but rather it's a financial consideration. Was that ever explored and ever run to ground?
It wasn't explored for a couple of reasons. This kind of entered the matrix, if you will, as a TIF application. The opioid settlement funds are not typically an economic development tool, so that's not something in my specific toolbox that's available to facilitate a project like this. And I think that I know work on this project, on this same program that's being done in Bangor. They're also attempting to leverage an affordable housing TIF for that. So the answer to your question is no.
And so a couple follow-ons. The money that is going to be coming back to the city is restricted. Can you just kind of highlight the restrictions on the use of that money, what we would be able to do with that in 10, 20, 30 years from now?
As that money accrues, our intention will be to facilitate in future investments in affordable housing, permanent affordable housing projects. I think one of the things to point out is that in this capital stack for the Riverlands project was a significant payment that was made by the developer for environmental work to help move the project forward. With the money that we're cordoning off from this specific project and others like 33 Union Street, we will slowly build up funds so that the city can finance those type of upfront costs going forward, as opposed to a private developer needing to do that on the front end of a development.
And I appreciate the email you sent with the, the 9 affordable housing tips. The use of the funds, some of them seem somewhat flexible, some are very narrow. And I just foresee, 20 years from now, the circumstance may change, whatever that was earmarked for. So that's what the concern I have with the TIFs like that, where it's restricted. We can't tell what's going to happen in 2 decades. And so I'm a little concerned about that. Is there flexibility? Do you foresee in applying that, say, 15 years from now, a council's sitting here and their crisis is maybe they need to hire 2 firefighters, as an example?
Boy, I think the firefighter example might be something of a stretch given the use, and you understand that. The good news is that we can amend any of these TIFs to meet a future need, or, equally important, if and when the state statute expands for allowed uses, we can amend for that as well. So future councils will have the flexibility to amend any of these affordable or economic development TIFs in just the same way we recently amended the downtown TIF to accommodate that 211 Water Street project. So it's a process, but it's a tool that future councils will have available.
Councilor Morris-Polly?
Yeah, my understanding of this TIF is that it's a little bit different than just affordable housing, that there's also a housing first kind of model that's going in here and services that are going in, and it's specific for individuals who have been homeless for a period of 1 year. Is this a TIF that we have seen come before us before? I mean, I know affordable housing has, but this type of a specific model.
This is unique. This is an affordable housing TIF, and this is an allowed, anticipated type of use for an affordable housing TIF. But as we've discussed in the TIF committee, that this is really on the front end of what is a social service program that underlies the project. So in that respect, it is indeed unique.
And am I correct when we look at the 2575 that the city over the 30 years would receive 117,000? Is that accurate?
157,000 is my number.
157. Okay. And then at the end of the TIF, would the city then would then they receive 100% of the tax dollar? Is that the intent of this, or is this building going to then be transferred into a nonprofit organization?
I don't have the answer to that question. If it were not, then all of the tax revenue would, once the TIF expires, would go to the city. And that is something that recently happened with 98 Water Street, with that was an affordable housing TIF for 20 years, which has expired a couple of years ago. And now all of that tax revenue is flowing back into the general fund.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Keith. Thank you. One of the things that we've been talking about as we're in the midst of budget season is the state revenue sharing formulas. Affordable housing TIFs like this, we talk a lot about kind of needing to balance TIFs coming in and out, right? We've talked about it with the economic development TIFs more recently, especially with the expiration of the marketplace. In a similar way, are we having affordable housing TIFs age out of the program like 98 Water Street?
That's the most recent example. Boy, I'll have to take a look at upcoming, because many of these we're doing more 30-year TIFs back in the early 2000 era. Many of these TIFs were done for 20 years, and those are the ones that are coming up. And sometimes we make the decision to extend the additional 10 years, or we can let it expire and roll those funds into the general fund. But as we've discussed many times before, when we do that, we also incur a revenue loss through that revenue sharing, school funding, and county tax formula. So we never get a dollar for dollar. Easy way to think of it is we get about half, now it's about 40%, because we lose a significant portion of those dollars through those funding formulas.
Great. So in this instance, we're talking about both a TIF and a credit enhancement agreement. And the TIF component shelters all of the development from the original assessed value from the state revenue sharing formulas. So we are able to capture the all of the increased value along with the reval value.
Yes.
By enacting TIFs at this point in time. And then the credit enhancement agreement determines where that sheltered value winds up.
The credit enhancement agreement designates the terms under which funds are refunded to the developer, the project, and to the developer, and those basically outlines those terms.
Mm-hmm. So in this case, where we're talking about a 75% return, we are not far off from the ratio of what we lose to state revenue sharing at this point in time.
That's close.
Close. Yep. And as we talk about with TIFs, if not for the TIF, the project doesn't happen. And all of that revenue is lost. And if by some means it were able to happen somewhere in the city, then if it's general fund dollars, we are not seeing the same amount of return to the city because it is not sheltered in a TIF.
That would be true.
That would be true. So here we get a new program, a supportive housing program that we do not have in the city of Augusta, with sheltered TIF dollars and affordable housing dollars under that TIF that go into our fund to support further affordable housing development in the city.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Michoud?
Listening to Councillor Morris-Pauley, there is a potential when this TIF retires in 30 years that the owner of the property could make this a nonprofit. That is a possibility. What happens if something in the next 10 or 15 years that the unhoused crisis that we are seeing right now becomes less and less and less of a need. What happens hypothetically if that use isn't needed anymore prior to the maturity of that TIF?
I think a interesting answer, and not necessarily a good one, gets back to the difference between the TIF and the credit enhancement agreement. The terms of the credit enhancement agreement would be respected by it's a contract between the city and the developer based on the length of time. Because the city can choose to end a TIF at virtually any time, can terminate a TIF early. But the subsequent risk would be, how are you going to meet the terms of the credit enhancement agreement if it's not backed up by the TIF? I suppose one of the elements of the TIF not the TIF, the credit enhancement agreement could be perhaps some element of occupancy or something like that. I think the challenge with that type of enterprising approach to the CEA is that the main housing is probably not eager to see that level of articulation, or perhaps a better way to put it is being cleverness. They just want to see a CEA and a TIF underwriting a portion of the program. That's what they're anticipating. Becoming creative is probably not going to be helpful to the financing, to the competitiveness, that's a good way to put it, to the competitiveness of the project in their scoring formula. That's what I would expect. But I don't have, if homelessness goes away in 15 years, what happens to this project? I don't have a good answer to that.
So there's a lot of indeterminates 10 years, 20 years, or past 30 years from now in regards to that.
I say yes. Sure.
Thank you.
Councilor Gary Allen?
Thank you. Couple more questions. Do you know how much taxes we currently receive from this land? Estimated?
Because it's a largely undeveloped, it's a relatively small portion of that.
Pretty
I don't
minimal.
remember off
I
the
mean,
top of my
right
head.
now it's kind of just a field, right? Ish.
Yes.
Okay. So probably relatively little. And then just so I make sure I understand, the project would get $15,000 a year estimated, and the city would still be able to keep 5,200. And then I think this is not a question. The answer to homelessness is to build housing. That is what I wanted to say.
Councilor Lynn?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So Keith, based on the email he sent me, the table, the 9 affordable housing, I just glanced at it on my phone, and my phone's hard to read it, but it looks like we won't see one of those TIFs end until 2038. So it's going to be a while before we receive full value from those properties that are being developed. And that's kind of tough to kind of get my head wrapped around. That's a long time to be waiting. Now, I know the application for this TIF came in initially at 100%.
Correct.
And then it went to 75. It came in at 30 years. Was there any discussion at less time than 30? Was it?
I think
Was there any pushback saying, how about 20?
Well, the pushback and the active discussion, in fact, led by the mayor in the committee meeting, was for them to sharpen their pencils and go back to their financing model and take a closer look. And that's when they came back from 30 years 100% to 30 years 75%. And I think another good way to look at this, we delved into this a bit last year with the 33 Union Street project. This has a feel like we're negotiating with a developer. And in some respects, that is true. But we're also trying to position the project and the developer for to receive competitive funding through this Housing First program. So we could drive a hard bargain with the developer and then not receive, in this instance, the Housing First award. And in the 33 Union Street, when we drive a harder bargain, if you will, with a developer that handicaps us in the scoring system, we just don't get the funding and the project doesn't happen. So in some sense, we are also partnered with the developer in terms of making this project successfully funding this project. It's an interesting correlation in that way.
It's an interesting dance. The only thing I would say is our interest as a city, their interest is their checkbooks. So we got to kind of make sure we do due diligence in that regard. So thank you.
Other questions from Mr. Luke at this time? All right, thank you, sir. Invite the applicant to step up and offer any remarks that they would like.
Hi there, I'm Amanda Bartlett. I work for Developers Collaborative. We are the development consultant for the applicant VOA. Brian, if you want to introduce yourself.
And I'm Brian Seitz, and the VP of Business Development with Volunteers for America, the owner of the project.
So typically, I have to say, when I come to these meetings, I come super prepared and have prepared remarks, but I've been doing so much work on this all day that I haven't had the opportunity to do that. So I'm just going to speak kind of off the cuff here. I was reflecting over the past couple of days about, the background and how we got to this place and this TIF request with this project. And, I'm thinking back to last year, March 27th, Nancy Fritz, who was here, maybe Franco was there as well, but certainly Wick Johnson, came to a meeting of the City Council and presented the recommendations from the Augusta Task Force on Homelessness. And I wasn't able to attend. I was just a facilitator and a convener for that group, but certainly hoped to be there and wasn't able to attend because my mother was dying. She was in the hospital. And the very last conversation that I had with my mom was about hawks and owls. But the second from last thing that we talked about was this project, the Riverlands project. And she always followed all of my work and was just really engaged and interested in the work of City Council in Augusta. And one of the things she's always instilled in me is that a life lived in service to others is a life well lived. And I've tried to live in that way. But she also said, and I shared this at the last informational meeting, you can make a wish, but then you have to do the wish. Similarly, you can pray for something, but God helps those who help themselves, right? And so the recommendations that were brought forward by the task force represent, I think, the wishes of our community. And those wishes were brought together by folks who are unhoused, who have previous lived experience being unhoused, community members, homeless service providers, members of the task force. And they all came together and looked at best practices, gaps and needs in the community, and came up with a list that's complex and layered in how this community can solve homelessness. But as a community, we then have to figure out how we take this list of wishes and how do we do the wish. And it's particularly difficult in a municipality the size of Augusta, right? Where we have a limited tax base, we have limited dollars. How can we bring forward some of these solutions that frankly are just very expensive alone? And one of the things that I've seen over many years working on the housing scene here in Augusta, previously serving as the executive director for Augusta Housing for almost 10 years, I've sat here with you across the table as we've talked about the need for affordable housing, how to help the homeless in our community. And the the thing that just consistently keeps coming back is that we do have a lot of folks here who are unhoused, but homelessness isn't an Augusta issue. It's a regional issue. It's a state issue. And in order to solve it, Augusta can't do that alone. We need all of the stakeholders at a regional level and beyond to come to the table and help put some skin in the game, you know, get their wallets out and help us solve this. Augusta just can't do that alone. And I've heard that over the years. And so as Brian and I have been working to advance this project over 3 years now, we've had that in mind. Augusta needs this project. We know that. We need permanent supportive housing to bring folks inside who have been chronically homeless. But how in the world can we do that when Augusta can't afford it? And so we've pulled together, again, over years, a package that does just that. And I have to say, I'm not completely sure, but I'm pretty confident that it's the only solution towards ending homelessness that has been brought forward with this much in the way of stakeholder engagement in funding. And, you know, we've been able to secure funding from Maine Housing through their Home for Good program, which is Maine's version of Housing First. We have equity, tax credit equity from a national investor. We have funding from the Kennebec County ARPA funds, so the county is at the table. What else am I missing? We have HUD COC funds, so we have federal HUD dollars in this deal. And then we've been able to address the ongoing services and rental subsidy for the life of the program operation of the project as well. And so the amount of money and the layering of stakeholders at the table leaves over, if we look at the 30-year term of the TIF that we are requesting, it leaves 1% for the city to fill. And I have to say, as a taxpayer myself, seeing folks outside, understanding the need for those here, boy, 1% towards a project like this seems like one heck of a deal. And even if we look at capital funding alone, you know, over $8 million in capital funds raised, it's the city contribution over 30 years is about 5%. That pays for one of the 25 units. Even if folks are coming in from Hub 6 and not everyone is from Augusta, have to believe more than one unit is going to be from Augusta. Most of the units will be based on our experience. So I just wanted to share that. And, you know, I appreciate each of you. One thing that is great about, I've been in Augusta for now 47 years, which feels like an awful long time, but I've gotten to know most of you really well. And I hope that over the years we've been working together, and I've been working in housing and bringing projects forward, or working with the housing authority and, you know, trying to work collaboratively on solutions. It means a lot to be able to have the conversations behind the scenes and to work with you towards solutions. And Augusta's always been a great place to do that. Just a couple of things I wanted to underscore. I think most of the affordable housing TIFs that we have brought forward through Developers Collaborative, through Augusta Housing, they've always been in this kind of same framework where we are looking at scoring, competitive scoring for the traditional tax credit program. And so I just want to make sure everyone understands that this deal is different. We applied for funding through the Home for Good program, which is Maine's version of Housing First. It's the result of LD2 passing in 2023, takes a portion of the Maine real estate transfer tax and allows Maine Housing to use it initially to build these Housing First projects. Once the projects are built, that same amount that's transferred every year is then used for the service dollars to attach to each of the projects to make sure that at least 2 staff can be there supporting residents 24/7, 365 days a year. This project, Brian and I submitted an application and a proposal in response to the RFQ. We were awarded the opportunity to move forward. That opportunity allows us to submit basically a financing application where we submit our pro forma that includes the development budget, the operating budget, and then Maine Housing looks at that to see if they can make that work. And the feedback that we received from both Maine Housing and from the investor is that they do have an expectation that the city is contributing through a TIF. I have an acute awareness of where the city is currently in the budget process and kind of how serious that's looking. I don't take that lightly. I am someone who always wants to look at alternatives with you and be creative with you. This project has Kennebec County ARPA funds, which have to be fully expended by year end this year. And we know based on our construction schedule that if we don't have shovels in the ground in July, that we will not be able to meet that goal. So we're in a place where, and I talked to Maine Housing today also, I just want to say that, to ask the question, is there any alternative tax relief or other funding source that the municipality could bring forward that would satisfy their requirement? And the answer was no, unless you have a chunk of money you can dedicate kind of right now. In terms of any delay to this project, it will literally kill the project. I say that I hope you all trust me enough now. We have a relationship that has been long enough to know that I'm not saying that to be alarmist. It's just a fact. I have a meeting with the investor scheduled on Monday where we're finalizing underwriting. Maine Housing typically takes 6 months or more to get to construction loan closing, but they're fast tracking this one in just a couple of months so we can get to groundbreaking in July and not lose those ARPA dollars. So I'm asking you, I know there's conversation about tabling this. I'm asking you to please consider supporting this project this evening. This is a one-time opportunity. This capital funding and service funding for this type of program is one-time funding. It is not something we can replicate with any other sources available, or we would have already been doing it. Brian, is there anything else that you want to add? Okay. And I'm happy to take questions as well.
Sure. Councilor Michoud.
Have you hired a contractor?
We, because of the ARPA funds and the HUD COC funds, we have to do a traditional sealed bid process for this project. And so we have to get to the 100% plan completion prior to doing that. So we have not.
So there might still be an issue with July 1 as a start date if you haven't.
No, we have everything completely lined up. We have been working with our design team. We have 50% drawings in with Maine Housing. This is completely a doable schedule and something we do all the time at DC.
And you're quite sure that you can, again, have a contractor by July 1. If this goes through, you will have, just hypothetically, what happens if you can't find a contractor and it gets delayed for any appreciable amount of time and those ARPA funds are lost? Where will you make that up?
We can't make it up, and it's not going to happen. I mean, I've been behind the scenes talking to multiple contractors to see who's interested in bidding and who's available for those dates, and we're only talking to contractors that are available, that have experience with these types of projects, and can make it happen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. The other thing I wanted to, can I respond to something that you asked Keith Luke earlier? So I just wanted to say, with regard to the affordability component, you talked about flexibility with the project and what happens if suddenly we solve homelessness and we don't need this housing anymore. And I just want you to know that Maine Housing and the investor mostly because I'm sure they want to protect their investment as well, requires that Brian's outfit signs an extended use agreement so that it's typically 45 years, sometimes it's longer. There is an affordability requirement for that entire period that extends well past the tax credit period, where he would need to continue to provide affordable housing there.
Affordable housing, but if it becomes a nonprofit, it's still affordable housing, but it may, that $5,400 we see every year may potentially go away.
It could. If this project doesn't happen, you don't get the $5,400 either. And frankly, if they have to reuse that site for a different purpose, they could build under their nonprofit and do a smaller project, and the city has no tax revenue. You know, I think I might be sounding harsh here, but the city has an opportunity here to get some tax revenue and to have a project that's needed and help solve homelessness. And the alternative is the project doesn't go forward and you don't have the tax revenue. You know, it feels like a winning opportunity for the city.
Okay, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Councillor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
One of the things that I've been thinking about with this project is the interesting mix of a project, a supportive housing project, that we often might assume to see a nonprofit completely in control of, coming to us for a TIF because there is a for-profit entity involved, and that this is perhaps a strange situation in which the city has the possibility of gaining housing that it desperately needs, this supportive housing model, without immediately losing the land to nonprofit status, to tax exempt status. That the TIF in a way gets the city back money that it potentially could not have if this project had taken a different route. If I from what I remember from the TIF meeting, the way that the capital stack was formed required Developers Collaborative to be the owner of the project. Am I remembering that? Not the owner, the
I can help you out. I can help you out.
Please help me out.
Okay. So the original version of the project, we were planning to have two separate buildings on the same site.
Yes.
And it was going to be owned by VOA as a nonprofit.
Yes.
And not paying taxes. And we ran into a funding gap. And the population this project was going to be serving was already permanent supportive housing for chronically homeless. And it was just like the stars aligned, and Maine Housing released the RFQ for the Home for Good funds, which same population, we have a perfect project. And because those Home for Good funds are tied to low-income housing tax credits, Brian, VOA, had to form a for-profit entity, which is required by the IRS in order for the project to qualify for tax credits. So that's the short answer. But we are not, Developers Collaborative is not in any way an owner. I'm just helping Brian out as a lowly development consultant.
You're too humble. So thank you for helping me out with the details of that. It is, in my mind, such a all-around win for the city that we could get this very needed service in our city with some tax revenue still continuing to come in. And one of the things, as I've said on this council, that I've heard and said time and time again is that the state needs to throw some help our way, like you mentioned earlier. And I find it important when you ask for help and you receive help to be gracious in receiving the help. So I am very glad to have this project come forward, and I appreciate you talking us through the details because these capital stacks are complex. These TIFs can be complex things to wrap our heads around. But I do believe, as we've asked others to put some skin in the game when they come to us and ask for assistance, it's important for the city to do that as well. And many of the people served in this project are residents of Augusta. They are Augustans who deserve to have their city care for them. So I appreciate you bringing this project forward, for walking us through all these steps. And I very much hear the necessity of getting the shovels in the ground, given that the ARPA funds can no longer be reallocated, correct? They have been allocated. That was the deadline from last December. So if in some way this project doesn't happen, that federal money goes away, is my understanding. It doesn't stay in the state of Maine at all. It goes back to the federal government. So there are layers and layers of urgency here. And I'm very grateful for all you've done to get us to this point. Thank you.
Councilor Gary Allen?
Thank you. Amanda, you may have said this already, so I'm sorry if you have to repeat it. I'm really tired tonight because I've been spending the entire winter on the front lines of the homeless crisis, and so I may have missed what you said. Would you please tell me how this is funded? Like the different types of funding and how much money you have?
No problem. So we have funds from the National Equity Fund, which is low-income housing tax credit equity. I'm not sure if I can publicly say the investor yet, but it's a large bank that's investing in this project at the national level. That's over $3 million. We have $1.35 million in Kennebec County ARPA funds. We have $1.4 something million in HUD COC funds with match. We have $2 million in Maine Housing Home for Good subsidy. So it's over $8 million that we have. Brian also is putting some, like what would be considered the developer's profit. Brian's technically the developer, is being put back into the project, into the capital stack, to help make it work. And then on the services side, the estimate based on what we know from DHHS currently is that the Home for Good subsidy on an annual basis will be about $900,000 a year. And
Could you say that in layman's terms? Like, that means that you're going to get $900,000 a year in secure funding for how long?
for the life of the project.
That is unheard of.
I know.
It's literally impossible.
It is impossible. I know. This is where I'm like, my goal tonight is I hope council understands how rare this is and that it is a one-time opportunity. The other piece is that Augusta Housing has graciously, and Maine Housing, both together have contributed rental subsidy so that 100% of the units will have rental subsidy attached, and folks living in the units will pay 30% of their income towards rent. The value of that subsidy obviously varies depending on how much income folks have. But we estimate it might be around $300,000 a year. So.
And the ask of the city is $15,000 a year for the next 30 years.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Lilly, and then Councilor Morse-Polly.
Thank you. I just, as I'm understanding and as you're talking about it tonight, is it more that you need the TIF or that you actually need the 15,000 a year?
We have to have a TIF in order to in order for the operating pro forma to pencil out over the full 30-year period and meet the underwriting requirements of both Maine Housing as the lender and the investor. There are requirements that we have a certain debt service coverage ratio and a per unit cash flow requirement per year. And the only way to really protect that and ensure it can happen on an ongoing basis is through the TIF, because we know, like God bless Keith and his TIF model, which is kind of stagnant. We understand that over the years, the annual tax amount will change, and having that built-in protection for Brian's team to ensure that he's getting 75% back ensures the long-term financial viability of the project in a way that an upfront one-time source does not, if that makes sense.
When you originally applied, you applied for 100%.
Yes.
How were you able to go to 100 to 75?
I just sharpened my pencil. We tried to bring operating expenses down and shift the model as much as we could to really push the limit. We'd never have asked for a 100% TIF before for any project. It's something that I really felt like we needed to do to best protect the project. But listening to the mayor and TIF committee and having a sense of maybe what the outlook might be in budget season, we wanted to do our best to reduce the ask to the very minimal ask possible.
And the TIF goes directly towards the operating costs, not to the actual start of the project itself.
Correct.
But
And that
it's
is, and that
tied-
is the issue, is the operating expenses. So this is where this ask is so different from what has come before council before, where the need is really about scoring. And for this, with this particular project, and particularly because, and I don't want to get in the weeds here, but when we develop projects, typically we develop a mix of bedroom sizes, or we might do mostly 1 bedrooms and maybe a couple of 0 bedrooms in a senior project, or a family project, we'll do a few 1 bedrooms, but mostly 2s and 3s. And the reason for that is that you need the higher rents from the larger units in order to make the operating budget work. And for this project, it's all very small, 400 square feet, 0 bedroom units with lower rents. And so it just doesn't pencil out the way that other projects might.
I think that's where I'm struggling, is where it's for operating cost for the future and not so much the actual project itself to start. And I know that it's connected, but that is why I have brought up some thoughts and some concerns of this actual TIF versus other TIFs that we've looked at in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But I appreciate your information. I did see the email that you sent earlier. I did try to go through that, so I do appreciate you answering all these questions tonight. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Councilor Morris-Polly?
Yes, thank you. First, I want to preference this with, it's not so much the project, because we know that this is a good project, it's the funding. And so, I spent a lot of today looking at the Moss report of the $230 million is going to come in from opioid funds over the next 20 to 30 years. And, I think this would be a really good use of opioid funds. And I know that you're on a time frame here. And I know when we met in February, on the 10th of February, one of the things that I brought up was the opioid funds. Can you tell me a little bit more as to why the opioid funds, and when I'm talking about their main recovery council, Augusta, obviously, the city has opioid funds. Kennebec County and Somerset County have opioid funds. This is a project that is Hub 6 oriented, which is all of Kennebec and Somerset County individuals are eligible to move into this project. And so I have, Augusta, obviously, we are going through tax season, and we have, I have at least on multiple occasions heard it has to come from Augusta, like this is the one and only thing. And Augusta steps up a lot, and we do that. And then we end up in situations where our budget is very crunched, and we are looking at having to increase taxes. And so I know it's 1%, but 1%, every 1% matters. And so I see that there's a possibility for other funding here. You've gathered a lot of other funding, but I'm not necessarily sure whether the tax base in Augusta is the only funding that's left to gather. And so the opioid funds is something that is kind of on our desk and been, has a lot of unspent money. And this is a project that fits very well within that, into the 4 principles of it. So can you tell me why that isn't something that is an option and something that can be and should have and could be explored?
Yeah. Well, a couple of things. One, I think I recall that same conversation during the February 10th TIF committee meeting. And I think when we talked about it, we talked about how there might be an application process that wouldn't be a one-time process, that it might be something the project would qualify for and then maybe have to reapply for. The challenge with that in terms of underwriting is that the investor in Maine Housing needs to have a commitment for the full 30 years for any funding that's available towards operating. And so anything that has any kind of risk associated with it or chance that we might not get funded is just not something that will work.
So one of the things I heard you say is that it won't happen, it wouldn't happen without a chunk of money now. So what would be that chunk of money now that would eliminate the need for the TIF, but fund the operating costs that you're looking to get?
We would have to go back and look at that. But what I can tell you is that, again, just going back to the sensitivity around timing with existing sources and what that would mean in terms of going through a process to figure out that amount, going through an award process with the city, talking through it, going to more meetings. This project just, and I say this being fully transparent with you, that it will put the entire project at risk.
So you have done another project like this before in Auburn? Am I correct on that? It was one of the case studies that was in the homeless task force.
So I am currently working on a project with Auburn. It's just slightly behind schedule from this project. Auburn is actually planning to provide a 100% TIF on that project. Similarly, there's a project in Bangor, another Housing First project. It was just in the news maybe within the past week or so. Maine Housing and the investor also requiring a TIF for that project. Bangor historically has never done a TIF. Bangor Housing Authority, which is the owner and developer of that project, is working with the city on creating a TIF district just for the purpose of making this project happen. And so what I see across the state is that municipalities that want to take on a leadership role in addressing homelessness in their communities and want to make things happen are finding a way to do that and to say yes to things like this, the tools in the toolbox that are available to them to make projects happen.
And I agree. But I also think that there's tools in developers' toolbox when we're looking at projects like this, such as $230 million in opioid settlement funds that are perfect for this, that need to be explored as well, because that really is hand in hand with a project and individuals who are struggling with homelessness. So, but thank you very much for answering those questions. That's all I had.
Yeah, thanks.
Councillor Lind?
I got a question, Brian, if you don't mind. Sure. Yep. So I trying to gain a little understanding of your organization. I looked at the Secretary of State's website under VOAN. I think there were 27 corporations in Maine. I assume they're all associated with the parent company.
They are.
Out of those 27, how many of them are, and this is an unfair question, but do you know roughly how many are nonprofits?
The majority of those, there are only 2 in there that are associated with tax credit deals. Those are the only ones that would have a for-profit entity associated with them. One would be our Miller Square project in Bangor, which is a 54-unit, 62-plus independent living
I'm familiar with that.
facility.
Yep.
So there's that one. Cabin in the Woods is actually a tax credit property, but it's a little different. So there's multiple entities.
So that's on federal property, right?
But that's on federal land, so it's a very different picture than the other ones. And then we have a 90% TIF for a future project in Waldoboro. That's 36 units.
Okay, so
Senior
I'm
housing.
kind of getting back to this, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush, is where I'm kind of driving towards this. So the owner of that property right now is VOAN, is that correct?
Which one?
The lot itself.
The current lot, yes.
Current lot is there. So lacking this deal, lacking this whole thing, you've got that lot. I would surmise you're going to develop that somehow. Unfair question, but I'm just going to, trying to.
I mean, we haven't thought beyond this project for that lot, honestly. Like, that lot was purchased specifically for this Home for Good project.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Gary Allen?
Amanda, is this TIF being used to leverage for additional debt for construction?
Yes, it's helping. Yes, that is what it's doing.
How much does that unlock for you? Caleb?
Maybe like reduces the need for, it reduces the gap by maybe 500,000. I'd have to go back and do math.
Thank you.
Councilor Judkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Amanda, we're spending a lot of time focusing on what we don't get. Okay? And I recognize that the fear of loss is a greater motivator for people than the desire for gain. But we're talking about 99% covered and a 1% cost. How much is that total bucket that equals that 99%? How many millions of dollars will be poured into this community for the cost? And now bear in mind, this isn't costing the taxpayer. There's less money coming in, but we're not going to be writing a check every year or anything. We're just getting a little less tax money than we normally would receive. But how many total millions of dollars is this community going to receive to build this project, have it here?
And you're talking over the 30-year TIF period, how much money is coming into the community through other sources?
I don't know how much main housing funding, how much county funding, how much HUD.
Yeah,
What's the
so
total?
the capital funding is over 8 million, and total funding over the 30-year TIF period, conservatively, it will be over $44 million coming into the community.
Okay. I think we should take a moment and think about that number instead of the little bit of loss that we're going to receive for taxes that may not maximize what we may be able to eventually get if something else is put on that site. And I'm gonna think about that with my vote. It's something we should do. Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions, if I might. First of all, this has been through the planning board process already, and you've received planning board approvals for this project. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. And there may be people in the community who think when we talk about the homeless predicament that we contend with, and we've been talking a lot about shelters lately. This is not a shelter, is it not? It is supportive housing, and maybe you could briefly highlight the differences between what people may think of as a shelter and what supportive housing really means and entails.
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to explain that. So this is permanent supportive housing, where everybody who lives there, in order to be eligible, they need to meet the definition of chronic homelessness and also have a condition that has created a barrier to them maintaining housing over that period. And they need to be eligible for a Section 8 voucher, which there are just a couple of things that would exclude you from being eligible for that. One being a registered sex offender, and another being having been convicted of producing methamphetamines in a federally assisted unit. But this is different from a shelter in the sense that it's a permanent home for someone. They will have a lease agreement, just like anybody else renting a private apartment in the community. And the difference between just a market rate rental or even like another affordable rental unit that might be available in the community, like Norm Mays has here, is that the staff supports are there to help folks maintain stability in housing. And so there are 2 staff present 24/7, 365 days a year, providing supports to residents to be good tenants, to be successful in their housing, to get along with other tenants in the building, to engage in community activities. This property is going to have a large community kitchen with a commercial range for community meals. There will be outside service providers coming in to help the residents living there. For folks who already have case management or other services, those providers will be able to still come in and work with those residents. Brian's team at VOA will be able to provide additional services beyond, for the folks who are eligible, beyond just those 2 support staff that will be there all the time. But essentially, it's outside of the service component, it's just like having a permanent home. And currently in Maine, there are 3 existing projects under this model. The longest tenured one has been open this year, I think is their 20th year in operation. And it's crazy because this particular model, we actually seek out the folks that have had the most difficult time staying housed, the folks that are the biggest consumers of our municipal services with police and EMS. Those are the folks we want to bring in to these units. So it's kind of the opposite of any other resident selection where typically you're looking for the cream of the crop and the best, the easiest tenants that you might be able to get. And this is the opposite here. And so with these properties that have been open now for 20 years in Maine under this same model that this legislation and funding was based on, 89% of people who have been housed in this housing have remained in permanent housing. And the number one reason why people have left is because unfortunately they die. And the life expectancy for somebody who has experienced chronic homelessness, particularly in Maine, the trauma that comes with that physically takes a huge toll on people, and the life expectancy is significantly reduced. And so that's the number one reason why anybody leaves this housing.
Thank you for that. Anything else from counselors? All right, we'll give you the last word at the end. Brian, is there anything you want to add?
I'm good.
Okay.
Talked enough.
All right, thanks. Now I'll open it to members of the public who wish to speak in favor.
Good evening, counselors. My name is John Reynolds. Tonight I came here to speak, not in my many other hats, but as one that was appointed to the the task force on homelessness. When I think of permanent supportive housing, I feel like that is a really insignificant way to explain what that looks like for many people. For me, that looked like finding a person that I trusted in my life that gave me that permanent actual housing. That person also helped me to find ways to work on my mental health. They helped to foster a motivation for education in me. They helped me to get back on the path of working and paying taxes. That's what permanent supportive housing looked like for me, and it was my sponsor at the time. We can't do that for every single person here in Augusta, but I know that with permanent supportive housing, I would have been just 7 years ago a person that would have lived in one of these, but I get to be here today to talk to you about how amazing they are, right? I know they work because it's what worked for me, but it worked at an individual level living with a person that provided me that 24/7, 365 work on myself, the ability to get connected to services, and that's what the wraparound looked like for me. When I think of like a number of that value, I think of my son today. I think about the fact that I am a person today that abides by every law that I live with, the laws that I support and love. I am a good neighbor. I have people in my life that care about me today. And I don't even know what that number could equate to, but I know what it equates to when I pay taxes, and I pay a lot, and it's new to me, right? At 35 years old, I got to experience that. I lived up until I was 28, not knowing what a normal life was. I lived in Waterville, and Waterville's trying to do things to get better, but I didn't get any of that until I moved to Augusta, where I experienced it. I don't know, and I can't speak for every single person that this might benefit, but I do know that at one point in my life, I came here and I utilized general assistance. General assistance paid my rent up to $700 a month for almost a year while I was trying to get my life back on track, right? That's a fair amount of money. That's just me for that 1 year. The people that would be utilizing the rooms in these places probably are on general assistance. Up to $900, I think, a month is what it is allotted. Even if 4 people that are on current general assistance right now were to be able to transition to this, that 4 people for a year would be taken off the burden of Augusta City taxpayers, which also is me too. I say all of this not to equate funding to life, to anything. I came to speak as a person that came up with some solutions with 12 wonderful people, grateful to be on that. To tell you today that I know that these types of programs work. It's not just a Band-Aid on it, I love the many programs that are existing, currently operating. This is the one type of thing that would be able to provide it, and I think that's why it's had such significant backing with long-term, continued funding, which is absolutely insane, like you hear. I see that this being a good thing, not only for the people that will be in it, but all of our neighbors and the people that we're currently trying to find a solution. So I don't know what 30 years will look like, but I just want those people to still be alive in 30 years, hopefully doing what I'm doing today that I didn't do 7 years ago. Thank you guys so much for letting me talk. It's good to see you all.
You want to take questions? You want to take questions?
Yeah, I'll take
Yeah.
questions. Yes.
Are there any questions for councils? Council Morris Pollock?
Sure. Hi, John. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yes. Can you tell me what was that permanent supporting housing model that worked for you?
I lived in my sponsor's basement. They gave me that wraparound service. They gave me the same things that this place is going to give. I had it in an individual level. I don't think there's 25 basements here in Augusta that can do that. If you guys want to start raffling, we'll figure it out. But that's what I had, and I know that's not available for 25.
So general assistance covered living in somebody's
Oh,
basement?
no, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the cool part, I get to now plug another thing, continuum of care, right? Continuum of care. I entered recovery. Part of my recovery meant living in a sober house. While I was in sober house living, that's how my rent was paid to get me on my feet. Part of the permanent housing was that part that I talked about.
Okay. So sober living.
Was one facet, right? And then moving beyond that, the continuum of care. Yes.
Perfect. Are there sober living beds here in Augusta that are available?
Yes, there are.
Do you know how many?
I don't know the exact number, because then you'd have to specify between MAR certified, non-certified. I do know there's a significant difference between sober living programs and exactly what this is.
Yeah. Just curious. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else for Mr. Reynolds? Thanks, John.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Frank O'Hara. I'm a resident of Hollowell, and I'm a member of the Ad Hoc Homeless Task Force. And I just want to say a couple things about the project. And I think people have already seen and are on board with this as a model for helping people who are unhoused, as John just said, by providing housing that's affordable, that's decent, that has services attached. That's the magic formula for helping the homeless move into regular living. And in the research all shows that, and that's what this project is about. I'd also just mention in the beginning, I've been doing housing community development work in Maine for 40 years or so, and probably worked in 75 or 100 communities. And you in Augusta, you probably don't always realize how lucky you are, but in Keith Luke here, you have probably the best TIF expert of any municipality in the state of Maine. And so, especially as questions come up, adjustments need to be made. Nobody knows more than Keith, and Keith is the person people at the state look to figure out how they want to change a program. And of course, Developers Collaborative is probably the leading for-profit housing developer in the state of Maine, the most creative projects. Volunteers of America is one of the leading nonprofits. It's really a development team around this proposal is as good as you can get, which is fortunate for you as a council in terms of when the kinds of questions you have about making adjustments or making changes and so forth. I just want to say, though, that this has enormous property tax benefits for the city of Augusta, and you've heard some of them already. I mean, obviously, you're getting a couple $100 on a vacant piece of land right now in terms of property taxes. This project will bring in around $9,000 between the dedicated funds and the general purpose funds that you'll get, and that's better than you have now. And secondly, as John Reynolds just said, you in the city, as I looked at the budget this year, general assistance is around $500,000 for room and board and housing in the coming year. Most, well, that's all housing, and I guess 70% is paid by the state, so maybe $150,000 there is in giving housing assistance. And as John said, a lot of these people are the toughest unhoused people there. A lot of those people are people at the general assistance office. So you're liable to save tens of thousands of dollars in general assistance. It's very hard to calculate that precisely, but I think that that's a factor that is a property tax impact. And I'd also just mention that you know, we've talked before, again, some of these property tax impacts are hard to quantify, but fewer calls, fewer emergency room calls for the fire department, fewer police picking up people for vagrancy, fewer problems, you know, just public nuisance kinds of problems and drug dealing and everything else. There'll be less of that, less burden on your police department, less burden on your fire department. Your public works department won't be cleaning up tent encampments. You know, that's all stuff that in the long run, over a 30-year period, saves money on the property tax and the property taxpayers of Augusta. And also, if you're going to, I know that this council is committed to doing low barrier shelters, and you've made that clear, and that's been part of the homeless effort that we're working on. This housing will reduce the number of beds that you will need for low barrier shelter. And that's something, a shelter is going to cost Augusta taxpayers money. It's going to cost local money. There's not state, federal money of this sort available to start a low barrier shelter. So anything you can save in reducing the need for beds there is going to benefit property taxpayers as well. And finally, the downtown, the Colonial Theater, the store owners, all those people will benefit from not having as many people who are homeless and on the streets and wandering up and down Water Street. Help with sales, help hiring jobs, more property tax revenues. So these are all things that in an indirect way will be contributing to your property tax base. And I think it's been made clear the choice isn't, you know, the choice isn't private development versus this. This is the offer for this piece of land. And, you know, you could have a vacant piece of land and get $500 a year property tax revenue on it, or you can have an occupied piece, get $10,000 a year from the project, and then also bring in 50 or 60 million in terms of rent subsidies and reduced general assistance and the service package as well. So it's a very unique opportunity. There's other communities in Maine who are lined up waiting, trying to get in on this, and I think that they think Augusta is wobbling a little bit. They'll jump right in and they'd be glad to get it because it's such a great benefit ratio for the dollar. So those are my comments. Eric.
Councilor Lind.
Yeah.
Frank, I'm going to push back a little bit.
Yes.
So this has been my concern. I've talked to Amanda about this.
Yes.
So I'm going to ask you to maybe open the aperture a little bit on your view and your analysis that it's 25 beds, but this is all of Kennebec County and all of Somerset County. So the impact is, you know, I'm concerned knowing some of the people in other parts of this county and Somerset County that are aggressive. I don't know the criteria for the Hub 6 referral. So it isn't going to be people that are maybe in this room. That theoretically, there may be 25 people from this area there, or there may be no people in that building from this area. We have no control over that.
Yeah.
That's the one part I'm kind of, if I could wave a wand and say,
Say,
you know, I want
yeah,
to change
yeah.
this thing,
Yeah.
I'd like to change it so that the UCLC could refer people, the Warming Center could
Yes,
refer
yeah.
people, RGA people could refer people. That's the part, and I've probably said it to Amanda too many times, but that's the part I'm having a hard
Yeah,
time with.
yeah.
I don't like the model of the Hub 6 being two counties. I just don't. That's the tough part. We're putting skin in the game. This project is great. There's no doubt about it. I've you know, very close relatives of mine would have benefited from
Yes,
this,
yeah,
have passed away about coming up on a year now. And I'm thinking about them. And it's not, you know, falling light of me as a Christian. This is Easter, you know, coming up, and all of this is hitting me. But I just can't get over the fact that I just don't know who's going to be there. And to try to say there's going to be a benefit to our GA office, we just don't know that. We
Yeah,
just
yeah.
don't know that.
That's a good point.
It is, and
Yeah.
that's the one thing I'm a little worried about. But thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just a comment about that, because I've looked at, in Lewis and Brunswick, Augusta, other areas, I've looked at the homeless population. Basically, the pattern is similar in all communities in central cities in Maine, which is in Augusta, about a third of the homeless would be Augusta residents originally. A third might be from the surrounding communities, and another third coming from a further distance, which is not too much different than middle-class people.
You know, I thought about that, but I just
Yes,
don't know how
yes.
that's going to fit into the Hub 6 referral process. You know, that's kind of what we see and what we feel.
Yes,
And, you know, the warming center's like that. It's reflective of that. But
That's
those are-
right. Well, all I was going to say is that's the pattern. I think that may be true. Now, Amanda thinks maybe they could have a higher percentage of Augusta, but that may be true of this, but it's true of the shelters. It's true of Bread of Life. It's true of, you know, the church, South Parish Church. That's kind of the kind of pattern of movement is probably going to be similar to what it would be otherwise. But other people from other towns are still going to be coming here and coming to Augusta General Assistance, you know, even if without this project.
Other questions for Mr. O'Hara? Councilor Morris Polly?
Yeah, it's not a question, but I did want to follow up with something Councilor Lynn said, is that the hub intake process is if you are in Hub 7 and you come into Hub 6 and you hit an access point, which is an assessment, that day you become a member of Hub 6. So this could possibly be anybody from anywhere in the state of Maine that becomes a Hub 6 eligible within the period of one day.
Yes.
So I think that is a real, you know, valid concern, is that this may not affect Augusta unhoused population. This may affect all of Hub 6 or maybe even the state of Maine, individuals who are unhoused coming into it. So the idea that this is going to help fire and EMS and GA in Augusta, it may be a little far reaching, right? I mean, it may help a tiny bit because we may have one or two that end up unhoused in Augusta moving into it, but it very well could be individuals from two different counties or the entire state. So.
But that is, I mean, again, that's the pattern of movement. There are people from Augusta going down to Portland and getting on their waiting list, and people, you know, there is a movement, but people mostly, even low-income people, don't move for a lot of different reasons than middle-income people move, which is to be near friends or a job or this or that. They're not looking at the subsidized housing lists and saying, I'm going to move to Presque Isle because they have an opening in their shelter or something. You know, I'm just saying, there is that movement and there is the issue, but people are coming to Augusta. They will be coming to Augusta with or without this project.
Any other questions? Councilor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Frank. Hi. I wanted to thank you for your service on the Augusta Homelessness Task Force. That was a lot of work. That was a lot of meetings. And the product that you all gave us was a good one to start this process with. I appreciate the email memo that you gave us to look through and the numbers that you went through. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is the possibility of inputting some Augusta money to leverage statewide funds. that come from statewide taxpayers. When you speak about the impact on Augusta, I do hear that. I hear that there is an impact here when we don't know the residency of many of the people who are on our streets. But it is incumbent upon Augusta PD and Augusta Fire and EMS to react to them when they're here, regardless of where they're from. And in a similar way, what I took from your letter was that if they're here, we are assisting them.
Yes.
And if they're here, then through this project, our small contribution can leverage a large contribution from the statewide pot of funding.
Yeah.
Am I interpreting some of the numbers in your? I tried to read.
That's correct. And your point and Councilor's point too are well taken. The state does a miserable job in supporting homeless shelters. I think on average in the state, 7% or 10% of homeless shelter operating money comes from state funds, and it should be higher. And the county should be in the game. The county should, there is some legislation this year to get money from the county, real estate transfer tax money through the counties into this, and it should be. So the Augusta taxpayers and the Portland taxpayers and Lewiston taxpayers shouldn't have the entire spending burden to support unhoused people. This is an unusual opportunity in that so much of the money, 99 point something or other percent of the money is coming from state and federal sources and private sources. That's a rare opportunity. But for the ongoing operations of shelters and everything, there should be much more state, county support.
Great. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah. Okay, next.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors. Most of you, I think all of you know me. I'm Nancy Fritz, and I'm here tonight both as a citizen of Augusta and to share some cost of homelessness information with you that I was responsible for gathering when I worked for 6 years for the former Governor Baldacci as a member of his cabinet, and also I directed the Homeless Department of Maine Housing for the same 6 years. And during that period of time, we did a study of 100 people who fit the definition of chronic homelessness that Amanda talked about earlier, and they'd been homeless for a minimum of 1 year. And we found of 100 people in Portland and another 150 people statewide in more rural areas than Portland. And we obtained the cost, the public dollar cost of what it cost for the people while they were homeless, and then we compared those. We followed the same kind of costs for the first and second years after they obtained permanent homes. The approximate, and this was a few years ago, so the total cost was higher, but proportionately it would be the same. After people had been housed for 1 year in permanent supportive housing in projects very similar to the ones that Amanda is talking about tonight, the ambulance transports decreased by 60%. Police contacts decreased by 68%. The jail time costs decreased by 62%. ER visits decreased by 52%. And those were the numbers I just quickly pulled today off of those studies, and there were other public dollar costs also. So it's clear, and that was the exact numbers from the 100 people that we studied and followed in the city of Portland. At the end of that first year, the costs that we were investing in folks were almost the same. What was different is half of that cost was going into the housing through vouchers, some of the kinds of vouchers that Amanda was talking about tonight, Section 8 vouchers and so forth. So while we were spending at that time $27,000 per person, people who were on the streets, during that year. The following year, we spent $26,000 for those same people. The difference being that half of that money was going into permanent supportive housing, and only half of it needed to be utilized for things like police calls, ambulance transports, that sort of thing. And the numbers were approximately the same from the more rural areas of the state, the other 150 people we did. So I wanted to share that because I think it's important to think about that we're going to spend these dollars no matter what. It's how do we want to spend the dollars? Do we want to spend it on helping people become permanently housed and supported as they move into their lives, or do we want to spend it on police calls and jail time and ambulance calls? So I'll switch just for a second to the rest of my comment, which is I've been a citizen of Augusta since 1988. And I'm a taxpayer and a homeowner here. I am totally okay if my taxes have to go up a little bit to support a project like this. That's my responsibility as a citizen. And I would challenge all of you that it's your responsibility as leaders of this community that we're spending the money to house people, not to keep them outdoors. So thanks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Gary Allen?
Hi, Nancy, and nice to see you.
Thanks.
While you were talking about the impact of the project on arrest rates, I was over here looking up an article that recently came out about the city of Augusta, and I just want to take a minute to ground us in the fact that this is very real. It's not an abstract thing that is happening somewhere else. In 2025, there was 1,040 arrests in the city of Augusta. 328 of them were people who are unhoused, or about 31.5% of all arrests. That is a staggeringly disproportionate rate, given that folks who are unhoused make up 0.5% of our population. And the reason, I took that literally from the paper. I didn't write those words. Those are the paper's words. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because for this project, what I hear you saying is that this is one way that we can decrease the cost and the burden on our police officers. Our police officers don't want to be arresting homeless people, but the reason why they're having to arrest homeless people is because folks have nowhere to go.
Exactly.
Right? So if we want folks to not be out in the businesses and not be arrested and not be in the jail, it's costing us way more money. Wait till we talk about the Kennebec County Jail. That's taken up half of our budget increase. And it's because at times, we make policy decisions like this, and it's frustrating.
Did you have a question?
Is there a question in there?
Nope, there's not.
I'm glad.
There's not. Thank you,
agree with
Nancy,
everything
for
that you
taking
said.
on my frustration. I appreciate you, Nancy. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions? Councilor Morse Paul?
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Hey, Nancy. When you were on the homeless task force, was there any looking at creative funding sources that can help solve the homeless process, such as the use of opioid settlement funds or other creative funding?
Well, we
could have
weren't
been
talking
used?
about the opioid settlement funds in particular. We talked some about possible sources of funding, and I think the task force report includes some of those. The report that we submitted in March of 2025, I think they include some of the funding ideas that we talked about.
Okay, I'll have to go back and review
Yeah.
that. I mean, I think this isn't so much that I think everybody on this council and probably everybody in this room understands that this is a good project. This is something that's needed. The reality is where is the funding coming from and how much of that funding can fall onto a municipality where we have, I think 41% are seniors living alone on fixed incomes. And so those are the decisions that I feel I need to make. Isn't that this isn't a good project. It's how creative are we getting and how are we looking at these funding sources to support these projects in a way that's responsible to those that are taxpayers, right? And some of us can afford our taxes to go up, and some of us cannot. And some of it may actually lead to them being unhoused themselves if we go up. So I just want to put that out there. This is not about the project. I don't think there's anybody in this room that isn't supportive of this project. It's really, where is that funding coming from, and how creative are the individuals who are looking for these solutions getting with the funding?
Can I respond to that?
Of course you can.
Okay. Well, I would say I don't hear anybody thinking this is a negative project from the council or anywhere else, that it's a very positive, worthwhile project. And I don't think you can get, my personal opinion is, you can't get much more creative than getting 99% of the funding from someplace other than the city of Augusta, than this municipality. This project is looking at about 1% of the funding that they need from this municipality. 99% is coming from other sources. I don't think you can get more creative than that.
And I just want to say one thing. That
Sure.
we have $230 million coming in from a fund that partially, if not more than partially, went into this process of individuals struggling with this addiction that we didn't tap into, that we didn't look at, that we didn't discuss. And so that's where I'm talking about creativity.
Sure,
I understand there has been a lot of other funding coming in, but I think there's more funding, and I think that we're not looking at a source that is directly and could directly be tied to the concern that we're looking at here.
I totally agree, and my understanding is that applications for that funding aren't due in until this May. And so they're not, this project can't wait, can't look at those particular funds and wonder, will they get it or not get it? And so, but I don't disagree with you. That's an important source of funding for many, many things. I agree. Anything else?
Can I ask for some clarification, Council Morris Paul? You said $230 million.
That is,
City of Augusta is not getting $230 million.
that is the total money that's coming in to the state of
Statewide.
Maine.
The state.
Yes.
So we
And it's
don't
split
have,
up.
to be clear, we don't have 230,000.
But I bet you wish you
$230
did.
million either
Right.
in a bucket or even over the life of these settlement distributions that City of Augusta can
No,
spend.
it's the state of Maine, and that is broken up between Kennebec counties, Somerset counties, all of the different counties, all of the municipalities, and there's a lot of it at the Maine Recovery Council. I'm not sure what their application process is, and the district attorney's office, I believe, or is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. So there's multiple different avenues
Sure.
for that.
Any other questions?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other persons wishing to testify in favor?
Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is Norman Mays, and I'm the Executive Director of the Augusta Housing Authority. I'm here to speak in favor of the tax increment financing for the Riverlands Affordable Housing Development, a project funded in part by the state Home for Good program. These 25 Home for Good units will bring much-needed permanent supportive housing for individuals in long-term homelessness, coupled with the 24/7, 365 days a year on-site support services from Volunteers of America. The residents will have a place to call home again. The perfect combination of housing and supports they need to lead the stable lives for which they have long hoped. Augusta Housing will also play a role in the development. We will provide 10 project-based vouchers along with Maine Housing's 15 additional project-based vouchers. All of these vouchers are essential for the success of the project and its future residents so that they can quickly move out of homelessness and into units once they become available. Thank you for your time and consideration of this critically needed permanent supportive housing.
Thank you. Questions? All right, hearing none, thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. My name is Betty St. Hilaire. I am a service provider for homeless people here in the city of Augusta. I did not come here for this particular thing tonight and did not have any intention of speaking, but I feel like I need to say something here. I know very well how timing can sink a project. This is a good project. This is a needed project. I think everybody agrees on that. I just hope that you will consider funding the 1% from the city that is needed to move this project forward. I know that it would be a huge benefit to the unhoused population in the city. Also want to talk a little bit about the coordinated entry process. I am a coordinated entry access point. So how that works, Councilor Lind, you had asked a little bit about that. So people are assessed through that process. And yes, the vouchers are available in the hub. Something happens called case conferencing where all of the coordinated entry assessment points come together and talk about what are the resources that are available. Generally, those are vouchers, or they might be these types of units that come with the subsidy, and talk about who's the best fit for that. In my experience with assessing people here in Augusta, the people that I'm assessing in Augusta want to stay in Augusta. There may be a few that say, yeah, I'll go anywhere, but that's very few and far between. And I would assume that it's probably the same for other places in the state and in the county. People generally, there have been studies, and I can't cite them right now, but I know that, some research was done for other projects that I was involved in where people generally, and Frank might be able to talk better to this, I think he did some of the research for me, people generally don't move for, to go to a different city for shelter or for other reasons. They generally want to stay where their friends are, where their family is, where their case manager is, where their support system is. So yes, there may certainly be people coming in from other areas, but I think that for the most part, this project would be more so Augusta area residents. And the fact is that unhoused people from all over the place are already here in Augusta, and they're already being served by Augusta Resources. So whether they came here from Waterville, or they came here from Skowhegan, or they came here from Portland, they're already here and they're already being served, and they need housing to get off the streets. And so I feel like this is a good project, and again, you have all said you thought it's a good project. I just hope you will consider it to be funded.
Councilor Lind?
So a couple of things, Betty, just so you know, the backdrop you may not be aware is the city manager presented a proposed budget. Now it never starts where it finishes, never finishes where it starts, but we're looking at about 21% tax increase. So that's the stress you may be sensing. I'm glad you came up because we're hearing from a lot of people prepared remarks that have really know a lot about this, but you're the grassroots person. So thank you. I just got to ask you this. There's some people maybe in Waterville that are advocates that are very aggressive at taking care of their people. And you may know who I'm talking about that can be pretty good at working the system, but you're pretty good too.
We're pretty aggressive here.
Yeah,
too.
so that's what that's where I'm going with this. I mean, I would love to see 25 beds, and I'm going to be real selfish and say it's people from UCLC and the warming center. That would be ideal. So I sincerely hope you guys are like cocked and loaded and ready to go.
On it, Councilor.
Okay, all right. That's the part that's really bothering me the most.
Yeah.
It
so
really
Bread-
is, and
Bread of Life
it's
is
not
an
about the
access
money.
point.
It's just the fact that we've got this people here.
Yeah.
And I'm selfish that way, So
And those are some of the things that come up in case conferencing too, right? Like who's the better fit for the resource?
okay, all right. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Councilor Morris Pauling?
Yeah, just a quick question. I heard you say that people don't want to move. They don't want to go to another place. But then I also heard you say that there's a lot of individuals who are unhoused here that are from Skowhegan and Portland. And so why did those individuals come here?
There
Is
are some, yeah, there are some. I think the majority of the people that are here are from here. There are some from other places. I mean, they come for different reasons. They come maybe because a significant other was here, or because I know that there have been a few people that have come here because, they thought they had a job here, or they did have a job here and it didn't work out, and become unhoused. There are many different reasons why people move, whether housed or unhoused. And I think it's the same, but I think the majority of the people are from here. Yeah, of course.
Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Betty.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. My name is Reagan LaRochelle, and I'm here tonight in my capacity as a resident of Augusta. As I've been sitting here tonight, I'm actually here just supporting my friend Amanda on a project I know she's worked very hard on. But as I've been sitting and hearing comments tonight, I feel like a lot of my worlds are colliding, and I just wanted to stand up and speak as someone who is the board chair of the Access Center downtown and who sees people who would benefit very greatly from this type of housing, and recognize how they could be successful that way. Someone who is on the Maine Recovery Council and deals with opioid settlement funds and understands the process, at least at the state level, of how those are allocated. And then as someone who works as a TIF consultant and understanding why the need for this project requires TIF funds. Councilor Morris Pauly keeps talking about opioid settlement funds, and I think Amanda addressed, if we can remember, and for tax increment financing and credit enhancement agreements, the requirement is that there is a stable, traceable source of funding, and the credit enhancement agreement is a legal document between the city and the project, which guarantees that that funding will flow. So that's why this makes this project stand up. And again, I think we heard that this project is do or die at this point. And so unlike some of the projects that I've represented here in Augusta, this is not a modification or a kind of a paring down of the project. If they don't get a credit enhancement agreement, it doesn't happen. So that means the $15,000 that we're arguing about here that the city doesn't have right now, they won't have anyway. They'll never have it. They can either give it to the project or the project doesn't happen. So I hope that people who are kind of having all of these different ideas swirling around in their head, we can hopefully converge and make this critically needed project happen. Again, everyone's putting skin in the game. I was very impressed by the capital stack that this group put together. The onus is not all on the city, and we could be potentially really helping some people who we all see every day in and around Augusta.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor Morris Pauly?
Yeah, sorry. I just want to go back to if we had the, let's say, $557,000 as a sum to give to this, right? Then the TIF wouldn't needed to occur, and that amount would be enough for the funding of the other 99%. Am I correct in that? Because that's the amount that's needed. It doesn't show that it's coming in over the course of 30 years. It's just one lump sum over that entire time.
I'm not familiar. Like I said, I'm just here as a resident who heard of many things. I haven't looked at the capital stack. I haven't looked at anything. All I'm trying to point out is that we've talked a lot about different funds of pots of money that need to be accessed through applications and are not a legally bound source of funding like a credit enhancement agreement is.
Right. Might be a better question for Amanda then, just related to the email that she sent about what the matching amount would need to be in order for this project to occur. So I could direct that to another individual. Thank you.
Others? All right, thank you. Thanks for coming forward. Any others wishing to speak in favor?
Council, Mayor, my name is Chrissy Kingsbury. I, at one point, up until recently, was one of the unhoused individuals that would greatly have benefited from this project, may still benefit from this project, as I am low income, very low income. My Social Security, even at 30%, would not allow me to pay for rent with my current bills. One wrong thing could make me unhoused again because of my income. My vehicle being broke down right now, I can't afford to repair my vehicle because I don't have the income. If I take it away from my rent, I have no house to fix my vehicle if I pay for my vehicle repairs. It takes one thing for somebody on a fixed income to be unhoused. This project would greatly benefit anybody who is on Social Security. And it doesn't matter if they're a senior. The individuals up here in this picture, they're on fixed income. One of the individuals has recently become housed. 1 out of 5. The other 4 are still unhoused. They use the other resources in the city every day. I run across 3 of them pretty much every day. And they ask, when is there going to be a resource that can help us besides draining every other resource that we have around here? The police are always running them off from where they can maybe get some rest because the city says we can't be here. We get every time somebody comes, not in my neighborhood, when a shelter is proposed, or when there's a resource like the Access Center, not in my neighborhood, because it brings crime into our neighborhood. But yet, some of these unhoused actually saved housed people's living because of a fire, alerted them to the fire. You guys want to talk about funds, but what if it happens that it's your family member that needs the affordable housing, so they're not unhoused? Think of it outside the box. Don't think of it as just numbers. Think of it the individual lives that you could possibly saving from freezing to death because they are kicked out of the warming center for one reason or another. These are other things that you need to look at besides just figures. These are people's lives that we are talking about. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to testify in favor? All right. Anybody would like to testify in opposition? Is there anybody that would like to testify neither for nor against, but nevertheless would like to speak? All right, I'm going to go back to the applicants, and you can have the last word if there's anything you'd like to add. All right. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing and proceed apace with the balance of the agenda. Next is new business, orders and resolves 26044. Madam Clerk.
26-044, City Manager, Bureau of City Clerk. Be it ordered that the minutes of the City Council regular business meeting held March 19th, 2026, and the minutes of the City Council special business meeting held March 24th, 2026, submitted by the City Clerk's office, be hereby approved.
Is there any public comment? Hearing none. 26045.
26-045, City Manager, be it ordered, the City Council of the City of Augusta, Maine does hereby authorize the following. Section 1, pursuant to Chapter 206, Subchapter 3 of Title 30A of the Maine Revised Statutes as amended, The city hereby designates the Riverlands Affordable Housing Development and Tax Increment Financing District and hereby adopts the district development program described as more particularly set forth in the documents presented to the City Council in conjunction with this order. Section 2, pursuant to the provisions of
Mr. Mayor,
Counselor Lynn,
move to waive further reading of item 26045 with consent.
is there any objection? Hearing none, the motion is adopted by unanimous consent. This order, 26045, is the subject of our public hearing that we just concluded moments ago, but it is still another opportunity for the council to hear public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? All right, hearing none, we'll move next to 26046, please.
26-046, City Manager. Be it ordered that the City Manager be hereby authorized to apply for and accept grant funding in the amount of $39,021 from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Bureau of Justice Assistance, Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant Program, the FY 2025 local solicitation. The grant is distributed between two agencies, Augusta Police Department and the Kennebec County Sheriff's Office, with no local match required. $27,409 will be allocated to the Augusta Police Department, and $11,612 will be allocated to the Kennebec County Sheriff's Office. Grant funding to the Augusta Police Department will be utilized to purchase public safety equipment.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? No yawning in the audience. All right, no public comment. 26047, please.
26-047, Mayor and Council. Whereas aquatic invasive species are non-native plants and animals that cause significant damage to water ecosystems, and the water quality of Togus Pond is vitally important to Augusta residents, and whereas the City of Augusta City Council supports the ongoing efforts of the Warramontogus Lake Association as they have strived for many years to improve the water quality of Togus Pond through resident and community outreach, education, and water quality monitoring, as well as establishing funding and carrying out an alum treatment plan. Now, therefore, be it ordered that the City Council supports the continuation of the Warramontogus Lake Association's courtesy boat inspection program and hereby appropriates $6,000 from the council contingency fund for invasive species watercraft inspections and boater education for 2026.
Thank you. Is there any public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, move next to 26048, please.
26-048, City Manager. Be it ordered that in accordance with the City of Augusta Code of Ordinances, Chapter 300, Land Use, Section 514, Air and Water Quality Standards, Section A, Subsection 1, Subsection A, Subsection 1, Subsection O of the City Council authorizes the City Manager to modify the hours
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Lynn,
move to waive further reading of item 26048 with consent.
thank you. Is there any objection? I hear none, so the motion is adopted by unanimous consent. What you didn't get to hear through a reading is the identity of the different organizations and agencies that would be afforded the opportunity to work at night upon approval of the city manager. Those decisions being delegated to him in this case. Is there any public comment? Hearing none. 26049, please.
26-049, Mayor and Council. Whereas the City Council Subcommittee on Homeless Shelter Licensing recommends amendments to the land use ordinance to prevent serious public harm that may result from insufficiently regulated shelters, and whereas the City Council agrees with this recommendation, now therefore be it ordered by the City Council of the City of Augusta that the Planning Board review and make recommendations back to the City
Mr. Mayor.
Council.
Councilor Lind,
I would waive further reading of item 26049 with consent.
Thank you. Is there any objection? Are there any objections? Hearing none. The motion is adopted by unanimous consent. This is a referral by the council to the planning board of land issues associated with homeless shelters going forward. There are certain items that have been commended to the planning board for their consideration and public hearing about certain aspects of siting of shelters and so forth. So this order, if approved, would refer those matters to the planning board for their input. Is there any public comment? Hearing none? Let's move to new business ordinances being read for the first time and no vote required. 26050, please.
26-050, City Manager, be it ordained that the City of Augusta Code of Ordinances subsection 270-11, Schedule of Stop Signs and Flashing Red Lights be amended as follows. Section A, stop signs or flashing red lights shall be erected and maintained in accordance with the following schedule. Add a throughway, Purrington Ave.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Lynn?
waive further reading of item 26050, acknowledging that there are 3 stop signs being installed in the Purrington Avenue neighborhood with consent.
Is there any objection? All right, the motion to waive further reading is adopted by unanimous consent. Invited any public comment? We're on 26051, please.
26-051.
Mr. Mayor?
Council.
Councilor
Would it be
Judkins?
appropriate, I'd like to make a motion to amend this order.
We're a little early for that,
Okay.
Try now, do we?
right?
When is it appropriate?
Well, shouldn't you read it and get finished with the reading first?
Okay. I was under the understanding that, under first reading, that we should strike it so that it wouldn't be read.
Well,
My
no, we
mistake.
do the first reading and then we amend it in any fashion that you want.
Okay, thank you kindly.
I'll come back to you.
Apologize for the
No,
inconvenience.
I'll come back to you. I'm right about that, right, Council?
I think it could be done either way. I think it makes sense to read it and then move to amend
Okay.
so that it's changed prior to the second reading.
All right, okay. So pick up where you left off, Madam Clerk.
Whereas the City Council Subcommittee on Homeless Shelter Licensing recommends that a new licensing ordinance regulating homelessness shelters to prevent serious public harm that may result in insufficiently regulated shelters, and whereas the City Council finds that this recommendation addresses the potential threats to health, safety, and property described above to constitute an emergency within the meaning of Article 2, Section 9 of the city charter that resulted in the enactment of a moratorium on shelters. Now, therefore, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Augusta that the attached ordinance entitled Homelessness Shelter Licensing is hereby adopted, and be it further ordered that the moratorium ordinance on shelters extended by the City Council on March 19th, 2026 is hereby repealed.
Councilor Judkins.
Mr. Mayor, I'd now like to make a motion to strike the language, the last sentence, that actually repeals the moratorium.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All right, that motion to amend on the first reading has been moved and seconded to delete the last sentence in the order. Is there discussion? The reason being that we want the planning board portion of this to be completed at the same time any final action is taken with respect to the registration, the licensing ordinance itself, so that it's all completed before the moratorium is repealed. So if there's no discussion, please vote on the motion to amend. No lights are coming up.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right. So let me open it up to public comment on the first reading of 26051 as amended. Is there any public comment?
Good afternoon and good evening. I think I'm just going to ask a quick question. Is this time for comment on the ordinance language itself or on the extension / of the moratorium? I want to make sure I'm just providing my comment at the right time.
I think it's on the ordinance itself.
Great. Thanks so much for the opportunity. I just wanted to acknowledge, my name's Steve McDermott. I'm a resident of Winthrop, but I was previously asked to provide comment by the city on this ordinance. And I just wanted to first acknowledge Mrs. Goodrup and the work she's doing to keep reading these motions as they go through. I just wanted to call attention to the staffing language, and I believe it's item 10B, that requires a staff ratio of 1 to 10 during what's called daytime hours and 1 to 20 during evening hours for low barrier shelters. Maine Housing and HUD do not establish a recommendation. Maine Housing, through its homeless solution rule, prescribes something similar or akin to the language that says adequate staffing to ensure safety for the shelter. And that's to account for shelter design and the clients served. I think that type of approach allows the city the flexibility to acknowledge the different types of shelters that you might see proposed, ranging from a barrack-style shelter, where it's one big room, which has clean sight lines from one corner to the other corner, front to back, top to bottom, which might need fewer staff, to something like an independent single-room occupancy-style shelter, where there might need to be more staff doing more frequent rounds. I just want to acknowledge that it's my understanding that the Emergency Overnight Warming Center would likely qualify and need to be licensed as a low-barrier shelter, and this might be a difficult threshold for them to meet. And the cost for an organization like the Augusta Emergency Overnight Warming Center is approximately $56,000 annually. And that's, well, semi-annually, up to $110,000 if they operated 365 days a year. So I think by having this type of language, you're reducing the opportunity for shelters to come in, suggest to you the staffing that they're going to provide, which you'll have the opportunity to review during the licensing process and articulate why their staffing ratio makes sense. So I just wanted to comment there. Thanks for the opportunity, and happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Other questions? All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilor Gary Allen,
just a quick point of order. May I make a motion to amend as well?
you may.
Thank you. I'm putting forward a motion to amend the shelter ordinance, section 10B, to strike the language after staff ratios and insert which may provide adequate staffing appropriate to facility design and guest needs, unquote.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
That's been seconded by Councilor Sinkowitz.
May I speak
Discussion?
to my motion?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think we heard from Stephen tonight about why the ratio inside of the ordinance of 1 to 10 is not going to be feasible for many of the shelters that currently exist. Tonight I feel like I am a representative of Julia and of the shelters and of the folks who are unhoused, and I wanted to speak a little bit about what Julia wrote to us. She wanted to be here tonight, and in her letter she says, I'm not able to attend due to a school event, but it's important for me to share my thoughts. The language that's currently in the ordinance appears to be a requirement for 1 to 10 staff ratio. Given the organic nature of operating a shelter warming center, the staffing needs often adjust given the acuity level of guests, staff callouts, etc. Maine Housing is our primary funding source. We received the largest grant award for warming centers this season across the entire state of Maine. and it is still not enough funding to hold the ratio currently prescribed in the ordinance. If a staff member calls out due to illness, emergency, etc., we would be found in noncompliance. Additionally, HUD does not have a prescribed ratio for emergency shelters. Instead, Maine Housing uses the language in the Homeless Solutions Rule that provides a performance-based staffing standard requiring adequate staffing appropriate to the facility design and participant needs. Adopting a similar performance-based standards would provide flexibility and understanding that the environment changes often for a variety of factors. With a rigid ratio requirement, it puts shelters and warming centers at risk of being found in noncompliance and often. And to put it very simply, that is my motion before you. It switches it from a staff ratio of 1 to 10 to a ratio that looks towards what is adequate for the facility design and guest needs.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councilor Lind?
So Julia's doing a good job of reaching out to everyone. I got a little feedback from her too. Just the 1 to 10 ratio would be hard after midnight for the warming center. I think they go to about a 1 to 15 or 1 to 20. And I don't know if this is fact, is coming from Julia. She said the Waterville shelter is at a 1 to 25 ratio. I'm not going to hold it up as a model for sure, but I think the flexibility is needed, particularly perhaps after midnight in the warming center. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Sinkowitz?
I think.
Did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am in support of this amendment. I like our language to be based in the reality of the situation at hand, and I think Maine Housing is a great guide for that language, and also appreciate Julia reaching out and giving us her insight as an expert, one of our experts in town that's actually doing this work. I think it's important that we take the guidance from the shelters that are working well here and guide our licensing ordinance toward what is working for them. So thank you, Councilor Gary Allen, for bringing that amendment forward, and thank you to Julia for highlighting it.
Councilor Morris-Polly?
Yes, thank you. My recommendation from being on the subcommittee is that the ratio of 1 to 10 actually initially came from the overnight warming shelter, and that's why we built it in there. So that's my first kind of question. I think that we took the ratios from both a high barrier shelter, from Victoria Abbott, and from Julia Stone to come up with these numbers. I think my concern with that language is that, A, it would require the council to know the makeup of the building and to assess the safety of the building in that fashion, and that I think it can also cause some discrepancies among shelters depending on who's on the council when the actual ordinance is, when the actual license is approved. So for instance, we as a council may determine 1 to 20 is great, but then another council may determine 1 to 10, and that would lead a discrepancy amongst shelters in the city as shelters are opening. So I think those are my concerns with not having a specific number. I'm not sure that 1 to 10 is what we're necessarily wedded to, but I think having a specific number takes the burden of us having to review for safety and the burden of discrepancies in the future becoming a problem among shelters. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? First? Okay, Councilor Lind?
Through the mayor, I'd like to ask the people that were on the team that put this draft ordinance together, at what point is the staffing ratio verified? The 1 to 10? Is there a point where it's validated?
Well, it'll be in their application materials, correct?
Yeah, I think it would probably be in the initial, they would propose it in the initial operations, and then when it came up for review by the review team, then they would put in there what their staffing ratio is. But it's not, nobody would be going in and counting the specific.
I was just trying to find a timeline where there'd be a point where you could say this is an appropriate ratio. That's what I was trying to get to.
Well, I think it may be prudent to say consistently a start and staffing ratio versus at all times there has to be a staffing ratio to give that flexibility of if somebody is out sick on vacation. The other piece to it I think that we discussed is that the staff don't necessarily need to be paid staff. They can be volunteers, so it's not necessarily a financial piece. It is simply somebody who is in charge of the safety and has a team that they're familiar with working for the safety of those in there.
Councilor Judkins, anything else you want to add to that? Okay. You relinquish the floor. All right. Any other? Now I'm lost. Oh, we're talking about the motion to amend. Okay. Any other discussion on the motion to amend? All right. Hearing none, please vote. Motion to amend only.
It's just an amendment, yeah. Right, motion carries 5 in favor, 3 opposed.
So now we have, on our first reading and in the public comment section of our meeting, an order twice amended. Is there any public comment? Any further public comment? All right. Hearing none, we'll move next to 26052.
(26-052), Mayor O'Brien, Councilors Austin, Judkins, Mishu, Lind, Sinkowitz, Morris Pauley, and Lilly. Whereas the City of Augusta Code of Ordinances, Chapter 300, creates the Kennebec District Business District 1, a commercial district bounding the city's historic downtown area, and whereas the city's 2023 comprehensive plan provides in the future land use plan for the city's promotion and furtherance of mixed residential.
Mayor.
Councilor Lynn?
Move to waive item 26052 with consent.
Is there any objection? I hear none, so the motion's adopted by unanimous consent. The subject of 26052 is to consider a moratorium on ground floor residential development in the KBD 1 district, which is also, we know as the downtown district. Is there any public comment?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would move to waive the second reading of item 26052.
Motion to waive the second reading,
Second.
and that's been seconded. Is there a discussion or not? Motion to waive?
I don't believe there's discussion, no.
No, okay. So please vote on the motion to waive the second reading.
Motion carries 7 in favor, 1 opposed.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Seconded.
Let's do that when we come back around.
Okay.
Okay? Again, let me open it up again for public comment in light of the fact that we've waived the second reading. All right, hearing none. All right, that takes us right to the course of the agenda. So we move back to the top of the agenda for council action on these several items. First, under new business, orders and resolves is 26044 minutes.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move to strike Councilor Sinkowitz from the minute meetings because she was not present.
Of which meeting?
The meeting minutes.
March 24th.
There's two sets of minutes there.
Not the one we're approving.
There's two.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I got ahead of it.
On March 24th.
March 24th.
And I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
All right. So we have a motion to amend to correct the minutes to reflect that Councilor Sinkowitz was not at the March 19th meeting. Discussion? Councilor Sinkowitz?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be abstaining from voting on these minutes as I was not present at the March 24th meeting, so I will remove myself from the dais.
I said the March 19th. It was March 24th, right?
It was 24th.
Thank you. Sorry. All right. So we've had a motion for approval that's been amended correct the minutes with respect to the absence of Council Sienkiewicz?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I think the motion to amend is still there.
Hasn't been voted on?
Yeah, unless it's
All
just
right.
going to be adopted by unanimous consent.
Is there any further discussion on the motion to amend? Motion to amend only. Hearing none, please vote. All in favor?
Motion carries 7 in favor, 1 abstain.
Is there a motion? So we have a motion to approve 26044 as amended. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries 7 in favor, 1 abstain.
Thank you. 26045. This is the order that would designate the Riverlands Affordable Housing Development and Tax Increment Financing District and adoption of the District Development Program.
Mr. Mayor, move for passage.
Moved by Councilor Gary Allen
Second, Mr. Mayor.
and seconded by Councilor Judkins. Open it up for discussion. Want to speak first to it?
No, I do not.
Okay. Councilor Michoud.
And this was brought to my attention a few weeks ago. You know, I'm one that knee-jerks some things, and I'll tell you what, this has come down to one of the more challenging decisions I had to make. And in the last few minutes, I've come to a conclusion. And I've had to weigh things, and I listened to the testimony. I have to take the emotions out of the testimony as best as I can. And I have to weigh the good, the bad, and the ugly, and come up with a decision. And again, I know the spirits of the family that owned that property for many, 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 many years, and that is in my ward, and it's going to house up to 25 folks. I certainly hope and pray that it's going to help a good percentage of the population of Augusta. Again, it's unanimous that it's needed. Again, we are going through a very contentious budget season, and I'm not going to talk a long time because we've been here a while, so I guess I am going to support this project going forward, but it was certainly not an easy one. And again, you know, as some councilors mentioned, maybe we could have looked at other avenues, but the clock is ticking, and, you know, I guess we just need, going forward, need to be more aware of potential offerings and everything else. But at this point, over the last few minutes, I am going to vote in favor of this motion.
Councilor Lind and then Councilor Sienkiewicz.
Much like Councilor Michoud, this was tough decision, just not for the project, but just the financing behind it. I'll be voting in favor of this, but I would like to, you know, highlight that this was an opportunity, I think, to step back and realize, you know, our standard way of operating, or at least the paradigm we're in, is to go to a TIF. I think if we had more time, we could have used perhaps the opioid money. We could have maybe written a legal document that might have sufficed to finance this. It may have been a better use of those funds. But on the positive side, we will be receiving far more taxes than we are right now with that empty lot. And make no mistake that the owner does operate a lot of nonprofits, so there's also a chance it could be developed as a nonprofit, which we would be receiving no tax dollars. So the positive for me is we will be receiving tax dollars. I'm glad that we have people in the city that hopefully will be aggressive in referring people into this building. And I thank Amanda and her team for the patience and the council for this discussion. I think it sent a good message to the staff. We really want to dig into things now. This budget this year has kind of highlighted our need to be creative and to be careful, and that we can die from 1,000 cuts when it comes to taxes. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Sienkiewicz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am very excited to be voting for this. I have been a proponent of this project since it was brought to the TIF committee. I have been, for a few years now, hoping for supportive housing in the city of Augusta, and I'm very grateful that it's coming forward. I appreciate and hear the concerns of my fellow councilors about the use of TIFs and credit enhancement agreements. However, this situation is really unique in that I just took a moment to look up the tax maps of that area, and this lot is not a large lot. It's 3/4 of an acre. There are, who knows what could be developed on it, if not this, but the houses near it are paying $3,000 and $4,000 in taxes. So at this moment in time, and some even on larger lots. One of the ones that I found was on two plus acres. So not only are we able to shelter tax valuation from the state revenue sharing, we are able to support a nonprofit partner without losing the taxable value of the land, and we are able to bring in more taxable value than probably a single-family home would do on that lot. This isn't to say an apartment building couldn't go up there that would bring in more taxable value, but it hasn't yet. So for me, this is a slam dunk, and I'm really, really proud to be supporting it, and I can't wait to see shovels in the ground, which is another part of this that is a slam dunk for me, is that it's not happening in 2 years. It's happening this year. We see a lot of projects come through that have a timeline necessarily that is quite long, and having one that is ready to go within months is the golden egg. So thank you all. I really appreciate everything you've done. I'm very excited to be voting for this tonight.
Councilor Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've said enough on the policy, and so I'm not going to speak to the policy. But what I am going to say is that I'm taking my hat off as a city councilor, and I'm putting my hat on as a peer support worker and as a community organizer. And if there's anything I can promise this council is that I will be the most aggressive person to ensure that the people who are most impacted by homelessness are first in line the second that application opens. And I will be voting yes tonight.
Thank you. Councilor Morris-Polly.
Yes, I appreciate everybody who's came here tonight and talked about this. I think it was a really constructive conversation. I think that we, as a city and as a council, really need to stay focused on the finances and the budget and how we allocate things. And as a business owner myself, I have to be very, very creative every single year on how I stay in business and how I make sure that individuals get the services that they need that I'm providing, and the staff get the pay that they're supposed to have. And I think that's really what budgeting is all about here. Again, I want to reiterate that I think this is a great project, and I think that the fact that the ask is only 1% is really amazing. However, I also think that, as Lynn said, dying from 1,000 cuts is something that we need to keep in mind. And with a budget that's looking at right now where we're at, not where we're going to end, but is at 21%, is, I think, huge and can have an impact on a lot of individuals living, working, and paying taxes in this city. So again, this is not about the project. I am in support of the project. This is a very difficult decision for me, and I think that it is probably something that I am going to support, but I also want to caution us in how we go about each one of these asks that comes before us that isn't necessarily, the fire and the police and the infrastructure and the things that we normally or typically look at taxpayer funding. So thank you very much, though, for answering all of my questions, for going through this whole process. I think a process has an ending for everybody that's a little bit different, but usually it's a very positive ending. So thank you very much for all of that. Appreciate it.
Is there any other public comment? So I want to jump in on this because I don't know how the vote's going to go. I am behind this 110%. So if it came to a tie vote, I would be voting in favor of it. This project is in furtherance of council goals to develop more housing across the spectrum in the city of Augusta. This project is consistent with the recommendations from our task force on homelessness. It implements the Housing First model by another name, which is empirically successful around other parts of the country. If we are serious about trying to address the homeless situation in Augusta, we must seize this opportunity. We've talked about creative financing. Well, as Nancy very well put, you don't get much more creative than the capital stack of financing sources that you have for this project. The city's not paying anything into this project. At most, we're foregoing some portion of our taxes. All right, it's not costing us anything but the lost opportunity for some taxes down the road, and we are getting taxes from this. So approving this does not result in a tax increase for the taxpayers of the city of Augusta. So when we talk about the dollars and cents considerations, I think the dollars and cents factors favor very heavily in favor of this project. We can be concerned about the ratio of people going in there and whether they're Augusta people, but I mean, my heart's pounding about this because I think we need to think about the humanity part of this too. Every person who gets to participate in this supportive housing is one more person closer to success, personal success, and that is successful for our community. Every person we serve, being from Augusta or coming to Augusta, is one person who's going to be better off as a result. So with that, I'll invite any other public comment, and if there's none, call for a vote.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
That was beautiful. Like, I literally almost started crying.
All right. Well done.
Good debate.
Good night.
All right, gets us to 46, 26.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
26046, move for passage.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Council Lynn, seconded by Council Sinkowitz.
No.
This is the order that authorizes the city to apply for and accept grant funding under the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program, something that's usual present to the council each year. Discussion? No, please vote.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
26047.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Move for passage by Councilor Lynn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Judkins. This is the appropriation of $6,000 from the Council's contingency fund to support invasive species watercraft inspections and butter education out at Togus Pond. Discussion, Councilor Lynn.
Greg Jolda and Sarah Fagg that were here last week were here tonight. I sent them a text and I told them they could leave. Greg texted me back. He said, "How long do you think it's going to be?" And I said, "I don't know." So they just wanted to say thank you. Greg will be here at our next informational meeting. He's going to thank us then. The hour's late, but real quick, I just want to let everyone know this $6,000 is a great investment. If Eurasian milfoil, as one example of one invasive, got into Togus Pond, the cost to control that after entry at the low end would be around $135,000 per year. So $6,000 for the summer to employ most likely a teenager to expect those boats is really a drop in the bucket. So thank you to the council and thank you to Togus Pond folks.
Is there further discussion? Please vote.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
All right, by my reckoning, we're now at 26048.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Moved by Councilor Lynn,
Second, Mr. Mayor.
seconded by Councilor Judkins. This is authorizing the city manager to modify work hours of various organizations and entities, times to be determined based on requests and approved by the city manager. Discussion? Again, as with the Edward Byrne order, this is generally appears on our agendas each year at this time. If there's no further discussion, please vote.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Next is 26049.
Mr. Mayor, move for passage.
Moved by Councilor Gary Allen,
Second, Mr. Mayor.
seconded by Councilor Judkins. This order is the referral to the planning board, various topics to consider for changes to the land use ordinance in connection with shelters going forward in Augusta. Discussion? None? Okay, please vote.
We're done.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
52. 2652.
Yes. All right, so 2650 is a first read, 2651 is a first read, 2652 would be next.
Move for passage, Mr. Mayor.
Second.
Moved by Council Lynn, seconded, well, yeah, we've waived the second reading on that, so it's moved for passage. We did that earlier in the meeting. Moved by Councilor Lynn for passage, seconded by Councilor Judkins. Discussion. This is the ordinance with the moratorium, proposed moratorium with respect to ground floor residential development downtown. Councilor Gary Allen?
Just quickly want to note that I will probably be the only one dissenting on this tonight. And the reason for that is I think that this has moved way too quickly. And I'm not per se opposed to the ordinance or like to stopping the development. I don't think the government should move this fast, and nor does it ever usually. So I'm going to dissent and record no.
Do we deal with the main motion before any emergency portion of it, or before?
So it's drafted as an emergency ordinance, so it would just require passage by 6 votes.
I see.
And
You're right.
Then
Yep.
it would take effect immediately.
So is there any further discussion? All right, hearing none, please vote.
Motion carries 7 in favor, 1 opposed.
All right, we're now at communications. Committee reports. Councilor Sienkiewicz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to remind everyone that the Opioid Settlement Fund Task Force grant application is open. You can find it on the city's website. There is a landing page that has the application and all the necessary supporting documents. And the task force will be holding a workshop Wednesday, April 15th. I believe we scheduled it for 5:30 for any applicants who have questions to come to the task force, ask those questions. But please do not submit your application beforehand. We cannot amend applications. So if you have questions, come with your questions and submit your application afterward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments first? Councilor Morris-Polly.
Yes, the rebrand committee met last night. We have narrowed it down to 5 individuals who submitted RFPs. We plan to hold interviews with them on the night, April 13th and April 15th, and do the scoring of those 5 individuals. Thank you.
Thank you. Further committee reports? Is there a city manager's report?
No report, Your Honor.
Any announcements? Councilor Gary Allen.
I just want to say that I am proud to be a counselor with each and every one of you. That's just all.
Thank you.
Tonight was a really great debate, and I'm proud of us.
Any other announcements? Counselor Sinkowitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, unfortunately, following up to Councilor Gary Allen, mine is less heartfelt. It is about the library, as always. It is heartfelt. The library's book sale donations are open on Tuesdays and Thursdays throughout the month of April. And I don't have it in front of me, but the library has a bunch of programming set up for kids over April vacation. I know one of them is a like clay working class for tweens, and I think there's also finance class for tweens coming up in April. So check out the library's website if you are looking for things for your kids to do over April vacation. Thank you.
Anything else by way of announcements? All right, we do have one final item on our agenda, and that is consideration of a motion to go into executive
Mr. Mayor?
session. Councilor Lynn,
Move we head into executive session to discuss pending litigation under the authority of 1 Maine Revised Statute subsection 4056E.
thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Gary Allen. If there's no discussion, please vote.
Motion carries 8 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank you. The council will retire to the adjoining conference room C for its executive session. We'll come back out of executive session for the sole purpose of adjourning the business meeting. However, I do not anticipate that the council will be taking any formal action apart from adjournment. So thank you very much for your attention tonight.